Being ethical is a great way to avoid legal issues, but you can't always avoid legal issues. Hiring a great lawyer who's well-versed in startup issues is an imperative. Don't just Google a lawyer or go to one that somebody recommended. Do your homework. Speaking from experience, my first lawyer took more than 6 months to incorporate my company. And then he forgot to change the status from a C Corp to an S Corp. It resulted in an IRS nightmare. You need to find a lawyer who can help you raise money for your new venture and who understands your business. If you're a startup company with a partner or team, then your lawyer is going to need to help you draft a founder's agreement. Not formalizing key ownership and performance expectations prior to launch can be disastrous. Many entrepreneurs form ventures with friends or relatives but don't effectively deal with the elephants in the room. What's going to be the share of profits, the ownership, performance expectations, conflict resolution processes, and criteria for dissolution of the partnership. The founder's agreement helps you objectively define those important areas and avoid legal disputes. And legal disputes among team members aren't the only thing you have to worry about. They also come from customers and vendors. One simple thing to remember, just like Jim Piccarello said, always get it in writing. Written agreements help all parties avoid misunderstandings, especially if your partner's not a native English speaker.
English pronunciation can be dangerous. If you are talking about your favorite fruit, you can say, I love berries, not I love bellies. Berries, bellies.
You don't want to be misunderstood. Before we move on to the types of licenses and permits you may need, let's talk briefly about non. I'm hungry. But that's not the kind of non I'm talking about. Non-disclosure and non-compete agreements. Sometimes your creativity has to be protected legally. The most famous of legally protected creativity is Coke's secret formula. You might want to legally keep both employees and suppliers from disclosing your trade secrets, and that's a non-disclosure agreement. Another way to protect your company is having your employees sign a non-compete agreement so that after you invest time and money training them, they won't turn around and start their own company, or worse yet, take all of your information and your client list to your competitors. Just be aware that there are a few states that don't recognize non-compete agreements, so a good lawyer will be aware of that. Another legal issue that you may need to be aware of is obtaining permits. Depending on where you're located and the type of business you're entering, you might have to apply for local, state, and even federal permits. There's usually permits needed for building or altering buildings, signage, food and health permits, and permits for certain types of businesses like barbershops, childcare, auto repair, hotels, etc. At the federal level, you'll also need to apply for an EIN number. That's an employee identification number, and it's how the IRS tracks your company and ensures tax payments for you and your employees are received. Gotcha! Here's the real video.
Kate Kennedy, Skylight Santa Fe. Skylight is a locally owned, community-minded performing arts and dining venue in downtown Santa Fe. Starting the business was about 2 years in the making. To get a business plan together, get our financing put together, work with all of the government entities that we needed to for approval. Everything was sort of do-it-yourself around here. We're a very unique entity in the state and especially within the city. There's nothing like us, so they didn't know how to license or permit for us. The day that we opened, we got our business permit at 9 o'clock in the morning. We opened at 9 p.m. that night. It was an incredible day. We just sort of opened the doors and welcomed Santa Fe in. As a full liquor license holder, you get your license to the state of New Mexico. What nobody tells you is that you also need a city liquor license through the city of Santa Fe. It's a totally separate process, which we didn't know about until we were already opened and then almost shut down for it. The signage in downtown is very complicated. Other challenges we're dealing with parking. for construction for our customers as well as our entertainment. You have to go through all these inspections and get all these certifications, and there's this very specific order that they need to happen in. But there's really only one or two people within the city who can provide you with those certificates. And unless you are prepared when they come to do that, you could wait weeks. People in the city are incredibly crucial to keeping our doors open also, because they're going to be the ones who also serve as a customer base for you, but they're also going to come and re-inspect you. So you want that first experience to be a good one. It would have been very helpful from the city to have a checklist, and that is something that I'm working with the city, especially the Economic Development Division, to develop a checklist for new and upcoming businesses, especially those that cater to nightlife. It takes longer to open than you're going to think. And everybody tells you that, and it's true.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above. And I think all of...
As we spend these last few minutes together, it's time that we had the talk. Now, you shouldn't do anything until you incorporate. It's more fulfilling that way. And one day, if you're lucky, you too will bring home your own bundle of joy. Melissa Carden published a great article comparing the startup process to parenthood. You give birth to your business, see it through childhood, and if you've been a good parent, your company will learn to function without you. Some founders are just bad parents. They either create codependent and dysfunctional companies or rebellious companies that oust them. A proactive entrepreneurial parent makes a plan and ensures that their new baby business is fully recognized as a legally separate person. And when you incorporate your business, that's exactly what you're doing, whether it's a partnership, a limited liability corporation, an S corporation, or a C corporation. There's quite a bit you need to consider before you select the kind of legal corporate form your new venture will take, such as tax considerations, the number and types of investors involved, and government filing requirements. Each form is unique, and some are better suited for certain types of business models. Let's briefly talk about each kind of legal form your company might take. First, there's the sole proprietor. From a legal standpoint, when a business is the founder, that's a sole proprietorship, like a standalone accountant or a plumber or baker or beautician. There's no legal separation. Every business liability passes right on to the founder. The E-Myth Revisited says that these poor folks aren't entrepreneurs who own a business. They're actually technicians who own a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you have no paid vacations, often no benefits, and your hours will likely push you over the edge. However, the advantage is that there's no double taxation. One key difference between sole proprietorship and other legal forms is what happens when you're sued. Legally, if you're a sole proprietorship, when you're sued, all of your liability passes right on through to your personal finances. The second kind of legal form is the partnership. For general partnerships, 2 or more people pool their skills, abilities, and resources to run a business. For the general partnership, the primary disadvantage is that all partners are liable for the partnership's debts and obligations. A limited partnership includes 2 classes of owners, both general partners and limited partners. The general partners are liable for the debts and obligations of the partnership, but the limited partners are only liable for up to the amount of their investment. A benefit of the partnership is that it's also not subject to double taxation. Another legal form your business might take is the limited liability corporation, or LLC for short. This form of business ownership is very popular because it limits an owner's liability to only company-related resources, but it doesn't pay taxes. The profits and loss for the business are passed through to the tax returns of the owners. The LLC provides quite a bit of flexibility regarding taxation, and depending on how the founder and lawyer structure the LLC, it can be taxed as a sole proprietorship, partnership, S corporation, or C corporation. And again, this form also avoids double taxation. The disadvantages of an LLC is that accounting is complicated. Regulations and fees vary from state to state, and establishing and maintaining the company is difficult and expensive. Next, we have the C corporation. This legal form has very specific requirements such as a board of directors, shareholders, articles of incorporation, and it's taxed as a separate entity. The primary advantage of this form of ownership is that it makes raising capital easier, and the owner's investment is more liquid, especially if the stock is publicly traded. The disadvantages include double taxation, and that means that profits are taxed once for the company, and then the income passed on to the owner is taxed again. Additionally, business losses can't be deducted against the shareholders' other income sources, and setting up the C corporation can be difficult. Finally, there's the subchapter S. There are a number of strict standards for becoming an S corporation, including number of members, not being a subsidiary of another company, citizenship requirements, and a number of other things. Unlike the C corporation, subchapter S corporations do not pay taxes, but instead the taxes are passed through to the tax returns of the owners, like in an LLC. We've talked about ethics, legal issues, and types of business entities in this brief introduction, but laws change all of the time, and finding a great lawyer and accountant is essential to your new venture. So, go out and take care of that baby business. Oh, and enjoy this ending sequence from my favorite cartoon I watched every day as a kid.